So for anyone who loves ancient history and mysteries like I do, the Great Pyramid of Giza really is just the gift that keeps on giving and has been giving for thousands of years now. As far back as we can go through ancient manuscripts, people have been in awe and curious about the Great Pyramid since the beginning of recorded history. Gigantic, triangular, solid white stone buildings erected essentially at the beginning of time. Now, about 8 years ago now, the Scan Pyramids team made a discovery that shook the archaeological world. They discovered a void inside the Great Pyramid sitting just above the Grand Gallery. They determined that it's about 98 feet long and could fit 2 semi-trucks within it. It seems to sit exactly parallel above the Grand Gallery, and over the years, people have speculated as to what the true purpose of this chamber was and what might be found within it someday. And after nearly a decade, Egyptologists have announced that they are now finally going to send a drill cam all the way up through the pyramid into the void and show the world for the very first time what this previously unknown chamber inside the Great Pyramid has been hiding and sitting in the silent darkness for over 4,500 years now. And I'm honestly convinced, and I've been saying for a couple of years now, that whatever is found within this void will have a permanent effect on the way that we think about ancient Egypt and will force many people to seriously reevaluate their preconceived ideas of ancient Egypt. So let's discuss what other experts and researchers theorize about this discovered chamber, and I'll tell you exactly why I think this may have a permanent effect on our understanding of ancient Egypt. And I'll also give you my personal theory as to what I think might be hidden in this void. So I just got home from the jungles of Peru, and pretty soon I'm headed back down to the Amazon. I put a lot of stress on my body, and over time our bodies accumulate senescent cells, or you could call them zombie cells. This is one of the reasons that you may feel low on energy, your joints hurt, or it takes a long time to recover after working out. My 28th birthday is coming up in a few weeks, and in a couple more years, I'll be turning 30. So I'm getting ahead of my health and my aging by eating a high protein diet, working out, and taking Qualia. Qualia is a groundbreaking clinically tested supplement made of vegan plant-derived compounds that help your body naturally break down these zombie cells and help you feel rejuvenated quickly. By taking Qualia only 2 days a month, you can help your body age more efficiently at a cellular level. It helps to support my energy and allows me to age better than I would have otherwise. And starting today, you too can experience the science of feeling younger. Go to qualialife.com/caverns for up to 50% off your purchase and use code Caverns for an additional 15% off. That's QUALIA life.com/caverns. Your older self will thank you, and thank you to Qualia for sponsoring this video. Now, back to the show. So there's not really any single ancient building quite like the Great Pyramid of Giza. It even stands out or stands apart from the other pyramids throughout Egypt. It's magnificence, the size, the scale, the scope, how they leveled out the bedrock to make the pyramids sit perfectly level, how they transported these massive stones as part of the pyramid and perfectly aligned it to true north, not astronomical north, but true north. There is no other building anywhere in the ancient world that seems to hold so much mystery as the Great Pyramid of Egypt. No one, even the most conservative archaeologists and Egyptologists, have ever been able to put into words and perfectly encapsulate the entire meaning of the Great Pyramid. Even the most conservative idea of it just being a tomb must be, Egyptologically speaking, an incomplete explanation. It must have been so much more than that. And I've even theorized that it was not a physical, literal tomb meant for the pharaoh's physical body at all. There are just so many clues around the Great Pyramid that allude to much more than just a simple tomb. If it's more than that, still nobody has been able to look at the pyramid in its entirety and fully, with an airtight proof explanation, explain to the world what exactly the Great Pyramid is. I've even heard Egyptologists talk about how the Great Pyramid's perfect, precise alignment to true north, not astronomical north, but true north, is something that seems so unlikely for them to have been able to calculate that it must be coincidence. It's that miraculous. Even the missing capstone of the Great Pyramid has never been discovered. What was the purpose of the subterranean chamber? Why does it appear to be incomplete? Why is there a 150-foot, 3-foot by 3-foot shaft running off into the Giza Plateau beneath the pyramid? There are so many things about the Great Pyramid that have thus far never been properly explained. There are alternative theories, such as the Land of Kim's alchemical plant theory. There is the power plant theory. There is this theory that if you lay down inside the sarcophagus in the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid, you'll have a mind-altering or mind-expanding experience, of which some people have corroborated. There's just so many ideas about the Great Pyramid's function. And even Isaac Newton himself felt that the Great Pyramid was either purposely or vicariously a depository for sacred wisdom, the understanding of the universe, and that it may have somehow encoded the measurement of the universe within it. And now we have a new mystery: the void. Now, I should explain where exactly the void is within the pyramid. When you enter into the Great Pyramid, you enter through the robber's entrance. You ascend up this passageway until you arrive in the Grand Gallery. And the Grand Gallery is a huge room. It's over 100 feet long, and it ascends at an angle. And the void that was recently discovered by the Scanned Pyramids team sits about 100 feet above this Grand Gallery, and it seems to sit parallel, which means that the void sits at an angle. This has led Egyptologists, archaeologists, independent researchers to speculate as to what the purpose of it was. So I should reiterate, they estimate that it's about 98 feet long, and the area on the inside could fit 2 semi-trucks within it. So that's 2 18-wheelers. It's a massive chamber hidden within the Great Pyramid that nobody previously knew existed before 8 years ago. Think about that. For thousands and thousands of years, that chamber has set up in the silent, pitch black darkness away from the rest of the world. That's just mind-blowing. Now, because it sits at an angle, it looks a bit like a ramp, sort of like the Great Pyramid's Grand Gallery does, which it sits right above. Now, this has led people to speculate that this could be another ramp for bringing possibly the capstone up close to the top of the pyramid, or bringing other large stones up into the pyramid. We don't even know what this gallery is lined with. Perhaps it could be lined with granite, which needed a second ramp to pull the granite up. There are also people who think that this chamber could be a relieving chamber for the Grand Gallery. Now, a relieving chamber, there are 5 of these that are already inside the Great Pyramid, at least that we know of thus far. So what a relieving chamber does is, it does exactly what it says it does. It's a relieving chamber, but essentially it's a cavity. It's typically with a corbelled roof, so like a triangular roof or a ceiling that sits underneath, or it sits above an important chamber. And so what it does is it distributes the weight away from the roof of the chamber below it. So you have all this pressure down. If you don't want the roof of a chamber caving in, you put another chamber above it that's triangular, and so it pushes the pressure away from the room beneath it. Well, the size of the pyramid is so immense that for the king's chamber, the blocks that are made up in the ceiling of the king's chamber are these red 80-ton granite stones. They didn't want these stones to crack and fall in, so they put 5 relieving chambers above it, diverting the pressure or the weight away from the ceiling of the king's chamber. Now, the Grand Gallery itself is another immense room, and so it's been theorized that this new chamber that they've discovered is just a relieving chamber for the Grand Gallery. However, when I think about that, it's quite a considerable distance above the Grand Gallery. It's not just directly above it. And so it seems unlikely to me that any pressure that's being diverted would be not quite as significant. Also, the Grand Gallery already has a corbelled roof to it, so it is diverting the pressure away inherently. So I don't think that it's another relieving chamber, but I suppose it being a ramp or a second Grand Gallery isn't incredibly unlikely, because a ramp or a gallery already exists within the Great Pyramid. So it could be another chamber serving a similar purpose to the Grand Gallery. But I heard an idea while I was in Egypt. I was talking to an Egyptologist. We were on this felucca in the middle of the Nile about 1 a.m. It was beautiful. The moon was coming up over the Nile and reflecting up off the river, and it was just a very memorable moment. And I was talking to this Egyptologist. He was a young guy, and I was asking him, what do you think is inside that void above the Grand Gallery and the Great Pyramid? And he told me something that I thought was fascinating. He told me that he thinks that the Great Pyramid was the first and perhaps the only perfect pyramid in Egypt. Not just because of the architecture. This is something that's been said by a lot of people, that the Great Pyramid stands alone and that it is the only truly perfect pyramid all throughout Egypt. He didn't mean it in any architectural sense necessarily, in the alignment of the pyramid or anything like that. What he meant was that the pyramid had served its true purpose and had been the first successful and perhaps only successful pyramid tomb in Egypt. And I was like, okay. I don't know what you mean by this, because the Great Pyramid's king's chamber isn't adorned with any hieroglyphs that depict Khufu's name, of which this is something that had already been normal in ancient Egypt. You hear people often say that during the age of the pyramids, the decoration of the inside of the tomb hadn't become the norm yet, and that this would only become the norm later on during the late Middle Kingdom and the New Kingdom over 1,000 years later. But this isn't true. If you follow the Egyptological timeline, during the 3rd and 2nd dynasty, the interior of tombs was already being decorated with the cartouches of the pharaoh, and the cartouche is essentially the pharaoh's sacred signature. So the interior of tomb chambers, the decoration of them was already well underway. And even beneath the step pyramid of Djoser, you see these corridors where it's thought to be decorated like his apartment in Memphis. You have these turquoise tiles all over the walls, and in the doorways it showed depictions of Djoser visiting divine sanctuaries and performing these rituals in the afterlife, and the doorway is lined with magical hieroglyphs and spells going up and down it. There's nothing like this in the Great Pyramid whatsoever. And so I listened to his theory. And his thought was that the reign of Khufu is one of the few times where there is no turmoil between pharaohs, as far as we can tell. The succession from Khufu straight into Khafra, which they say that Khafra is responsible for the middle pyramid, that the succession, the handing over of power, is something that happens so seamlessly that there's not a lot of archaeological evidence from that time, because we have more evidence from times of turmoil than we do of times of great success, because there's not a lot of drama happening in the civilization at the time. What he thinks is that Khufu's pyramid was purposely not completed during the reign of Khufu, in that instead what may have happened was that Khufu decided during his reign that the initial interior chambers, none of which he was going to be buried within, and so they were never decorated, they were never completely finished. As the pyramid ascended, he essentially told his son that you will have the task of completing my pyramid and burying me within it and sealing me in the pyramid. There will be no way to access the inside of the pyramid once it's completed. It'll be completely sealed off. And so he felt that if there were any father-son duo throughout all of ancient Egypt that could successfully pull off a perfect burial of a pharaoh within a pyramid, it was Khufu and Khafra. And he thinks that Khafra sealed his father Khufu within his pyramid. And so that void that they discovered is either the actual burial chamber of Khufu, or in the same way that the Grand Gallery leads up to the King's Chamber, this is another Grand Gallery leading up to another King's Chamber that has the perfect and untouched tomb of Khufu still within it. And I thought that was, well, my mind was blown. I mean, that's certainly possible. It's a pretty damn good theory, I thought. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. But the reason that I say that sending this drill cam up into this void is going to have a permanent effect on the way that we perceive ancient Egypt and the way that we understand ancient Egypt is because if there is anything at all inside this chamber, anything whatsoever, whether it is painting on the wall, whether it is hieroglyphs or graffiti on the wall, or if there's a tool left in this room, even a single shred of evidence, it will permanently lock this pyramid within a certain time period. From the time that this pyramid was completed, when the roof was put on top of this chamber that we didn't know existed, nothing has left or entered that room since that day. If there's writing on the wall that is Old Kingdom graffiti or hieroglyphs, that means the pyramid was built during the time of the Old Kingdom. If there are artifacts in it that we've never seen before, then we have to completely reconsider everything that we thought about the pyramid. Whatever is inside of it is going to have a permanent effect on the way that the entire world views ancient Egypt. And a lot of people are going to have to come to some kind of hard truth, whichever way it is. And they're going to have to reconcile their preconceived ideas about Egypt. This is like essentially opening up a time capsule from the ancient world. This is one of the few chambers in Egypt that we can say without a shadow of a doubt has been untouched since the day it was closed. We can't even say that about the pharaoh's tombs in the Valley of Kings. They were always being tampered with, and pharaohs were being pulled in and out, and the graves were being robbed. And when you go in, we have no assurance whatsoever in the vast majority of these chambers that it hasn't been tampered with. Tut's tomb is really one of the few examples of something that was completely untouched since the time that it was sealed. But this is just so much more significant. This is in the Great Pyramid itself. Whatever's found, it's going to have a permanent effect on the way that we view ancient Egypt, the way we understand the ancient world, the way we understand the pyramids, the way we understand the Old Kingdom. All of it is going to be permanently affected. This could be one of the greatest discoveries or greatest archaeological moments in the history of archaeology. It could be the biggest thing that's ever happened in the archaeological realm in the 21st century. And I'm planning on being in Egypt, there on the Giza Plateau, when they send the drill cam up into the void. So if you'd like to keep up with that, please like and subscribe for more. I'm Luke Caverns, and we'll see you in the next video.